Ashela Chakshurunmilitam
Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatitam
Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Kanvitam Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisya Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namoshtuti Sapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhi Tavarishwari Rishabhanushtuti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanjakalpatarubhyasya Kripasindhuvaivacha Patitanam pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namah. Jai
Jai
Shri
Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu
Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi
Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shashwin, for the wonderful Mangalacharan recital. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances on behalf of everybody in this group who have joined and are about to join. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 5. And the text for today is text 10. Prabhuji, should we read the text, translation and purport and then hand over to you?
Please.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Shashwin, are you able to read the text 10 for us? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskrityam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye
Nashta.
Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Nayad Vachaschitra Padam Hariyasu Jagat Pavitram Pragrunni Arhit Chit Dadya Vasyasam Tirtamusanti Manasa Nayak Rahamsa Niraman Jusik
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Shashwin, for the wonderful recital of text 10. Would anybody, Kumar Prabhuji, I just saw you. Will you be able to do the word to word for us? Hare Krishna. Na, not.
Not.
That,
Yet. That.
that. Vacha, vocabulary. Prabhuji, we can't hear you. We are just pretending that you have said it and then we are reciting after you. Chitrapadam,
Decorative.
decorative.
Hare.
Hare,
Hare of the Lord.
Of
the
the Lord.
Yes, Shaha, glories.
Glory.
Jagat,
Universe.
universe.
Pavitram.
Pavitra.
Pavitram,
Sanctified.
sanctified.
Pragnita.
Pragnita.
Described.
Karhichit.
Karhichit,
Hardly.
hardly.
That.
Tat,
Tat.
That.
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 Vayasam.
Vayas.
Parasam,
Cross.
Pro.
Cross.
Tirtham,
Tirtham,
place of pilgrimage.
Place
place of pilgrimage.
Kusandi,
Ushanti,
think.
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 Manasa,
Manasa,
Manasa.
saintly person.
saintly person.
Na,
Na,
not.
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 Yatra,
Yatra,
where.
Where?
where.
Kamsa,
Kamsa,
all perfect beings.
all perfect beings.
Niramandi,
Niramanti,
take pleasure.
take
pleasure.
pleasure.
Siksaya,
Ushishaya,
those who reside in the transcendental abode.
those who
Those who
reside in the
reside
transcendental abode.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Suni Mataji, would you like to read the translation and the purport?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Translation. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by the saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure here or there. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The fruitive workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly persons are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive worker takes pleasure in wine and woman and places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of water nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers in variegated colors of natural beauty. That is the difference between the two classes of birds. Nature has influenced different species of life with different mentalities, and it is not possible to bring them up to the same rank and file. Similarly, there are different kinds of literature for different types of men of different mentality. Mostly the market literatures which attract men of the crows categories are literatures containing refused remnants of sensuous topics. They are generally known as mundane talks in relation to the gross body and subtle mind. They are full of subject matter described in decorative language, full of mundane similarities or similes and metaphorical arrangements. Yet with all that, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry and prose on any subject matter is considered decoration of a dead body. Spiritually advanced men who are compared to the swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures, which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. The literatures in the modes of passion and ignorance are distributed under different labels, but they can hardly help the spiritual urge of the human being, and thus the swan-like spirituality advanced men have nothing to do with them. Such spiritually advanced men are called also manasa because they always keep up the standard of transcendental voluntary service to the Lord on the spiritual plane. This completely forbids fruitive activities for gross bodily sense satisfaction or subtle speculation of the material egoistic mind. Social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Swami Sridhara, this is the pleasure of the prostitute hunters. But literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramhamsas, who have grasped the sense of human activities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Soni Mataji and Kumar Prabhuji and Shashri. Prabhuji, we hand over to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to all the assembled devotees. So I'll read the text again. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanjana Shalaka Akshoram Dhrutam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurudev. So we're continuing to hear Narada's instructions on the Srimad Bhagavatam to his disciple, Srila Vyasadeva. Lord Krishna is the original guru who instructs Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma instructs his son, Sri Narada Muni, and the disciple of Narada Muni is Srila Vyasadeva. So in this text, it is pretty plainly spoken that there are different types of people. Very strong language is used here in the first few sentences. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The fruitive workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly persons are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive workers take pleasure in wine and women in places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of water, nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers and variegated colors of natural beauty. That is the difference between the two classes of birds. So in Bhagavad Gita, in the 14th chapter, the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. And then the 14th chapter describes the movements of the living entities. Or the 13th chapter is nature, enduring consciousness, and the 14th chapter is the three modes of material nature. Excuse me. So there are different mentalities. There are different types of living beings in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And here, and when very often in writing, when it's said men, it just means human beings. Although especially it is meant for men because they are supposed to be, as a rule, leaders. Not that women can't be leaders, but just in general, men are considered to be leaders, meant to be leaders. So it is very important that they understand the absolute truth. Everyone should understand the absolute truth. All embodied souls, especially those in the human form of life. So what makes the difference between the different levels? In the first sentence, it says there are different mental attitudes, and then describes that there are passionate men or passionate people who are fruitive workers. What does that mean, fruitive workers? That means they're working to enjoy something, to make money, and with the money, I will enjoy myself. I will travel to this place, I will buy this thing, I will eat this food, I will go to this restaurant. And the mode of passion, the different modes of nature, the difference between them are the degree of spiritual awareness. We are all Brahman. We are all Brahminical. We are all spirit souls. That's who we are. When we lose consciousness of this, automatically, we sink lower into a mentality of passion and ignorance. It's automatic. It is so much based upon our genuine Krishna consciousness or spiritual consciousness, how much we are aware of Krishna, this transcendental spiritual world, our own spiritual nature, eternal identity, and our relationship with Krishna, and the habits that we develop in our life. I say habits because even though we may become aware of our higher spiritual nature, our past habits may make it difficult to act according to that understanding. Habit is very strong. And people may know they should not smoke, but sometimes it's almost impossible to stop smoking, even though they have the awareness. So even though we have awareness of Krishna and have awareness that we're not these bodies and we're part of Krishna, still because of our habit from many births in this world, it is usually difficult to one degree or the other to act as a Krishna conscious pure devotee. People value different things. We can think of our relatives, our close family, friends. They talk about different things. They talk about a store where one can get good deals, good prices. They talk about what the politicians are doing, what the politics are, what the public policy is in the country. They may talk about movies or video games, right? This is what people talk about. When we go to work at the office, they're talking about what the sports team did, what they did over the weekend, where they ate. Eating is a very common, usual topic among humans, where they ate, what restaurant, what food, what did they cook, what they're going to cook, where they're going to eat. A very common topic of conversation. Some vacation that is coming up in the future, where it's going to be, what they're going to do. So people talk about what they value, of course. In the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada mentions that we can understand, first off, the degree of spiritual advancement of someone by what they are inclined to talk about, because we talk about what we value. It was described about His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada that even in his householder life, when he was doing business, the various businessmen, when they were interviewed, they said he would talk some business, but he would always get back to talking about God. So we can understand our own advancement and other people's advancement to some degree by what they talk about, what they're enthusiastic about, which is why our association is so very important as devotees, because we are on the path of awakening our natural swan-like nature. We are all swans, and devotees are on the path of completely awakening our beautiful spiritual personality. And we have to be very careful to protect ourselves from unwanted association. Because the fact of the matter is, we tend to be enthusiastic by what other people are enthusiastic about. They start talking about some certain recipe. It's a very good recipe. Everyone loved it. It was very tasty. Oh, I think I want to do that. They talk about going to some place. It was very nice. We liked it. Oh, I think I should go there. This is only natural. And especially when we have a heart-to-heart relationship with someone. Sometimes we ask, well, you know, what does it mean not to have the association of other people? Should I not be friendly with other people? Of course we should be friendly. Everyone is part of Krishna, but we should keep our heart for relationships with other devotees. There's a little story that's told about a monkey who wanted to cross a river, and a crocodile thought, oh, this is a chance to get a good meal. So the alligator said, get on my back, I'll take you across. So the monkey did. And halfway across, the crocodile stopped. And the monkey said, why? So, oh, what did you think? I'm going to eat your heart. And so the monkey was quite brilliant. And the monkey said, oh, okay. All right, I'm on board. But I left it on the other side. So let's go back and get it. So the crocodile, being a dumb crocodile, took the monkey back, and the monkey escaped with his heart, or her heart. So we can mix with people, but we should not give our heart. And what does that mean? In the Nectar of Instruction, there are 6 principles for developing relationships with devotees. Does anyone remember some of them? There are 6 activities for developing a relationship with Krishna or devotees, with anyone. Does anyone remember? That's a very, very important first book to study, the Nectar of Instruction.
Yeah, offer prasadam and accept prasadam.
Offer prasadam, right? That's a standard activity. You offer someone something to eat, they offer you something to eat. Especially with men and women, you have dates. What else?
To reveal your heart.
Wait, what?
To reveal your heart if that person is special.
Yes, we discuss our inner feeling and we ask for advice. And the other person will do that also. There's another set of 2. Something else that's very common in men and women relationships, all relationships. We give gifts, right? We give a gift and we may receive a gift. So these activities of offering something to eat, receiving something, gifts, gift giving, and especially revealing our mind, these are heart-to-heart exchanges. And they usually result in attachment. We become somewhat attached to we like the person. This man gave me a bunch of flowers. I like him. Or my coworker, she listened to me. I described something happening in my life, and she's such a nice friend. And I'm going to give her something next time I see her. And so on the basis of these 6 exchanges, we open the door for a heart-to-heart relationship, for attachment. And we don't want to develop attachment with the wrong person. Because if we are too friendly with our coworker, suppose it's a woman and a man, and you start discussing personal feelings and things, it can go in the wrong direction very quickly. Your coworker says, "Oh, let's go to this restaurant," and we don't want to hurt their feelings because we have a relationship. And even though we know it's not good for our Krishna consciousness, we end up going anyway because of that relationship. Actually, because of a lot has to do with our strength of mind. But once we develop a heartfelt relationship, it becomes more and more difficult to resist going along with the person. So with people in general, of course we're friendly. How are you? How are your friends? How are your kids? You know, did you have a good weekend? And we leave it at that. We don't want to get too involved in discussing our inner feelings, or as possible, not listening to their inner feelings, although sometimes it's unavoidable. But the point is there. I hope we can understand it, that we don't want to give our heart to anyone other than those who are good company and will be good, will help us on the path of Krishna consciousness. And it can be so tricky, especially before marriage. We're looking for a marital partner and we develop a relationship with a boy or a girl. And then we realize that, oh, this person's not going to be very good it's going to be difficult for my Krishna consciousness. And that's a hard one. That's a hard one. It is. And then for that matter, something I wanted to discuss, whether it's children with parents, whether you're a grown-up child with older parents, or you're a young child with, living with your parents growing up, you may want to be a devotee, but your parents are not. A wife may take to Krishna consciousness and her husband is not on the same level as she is, or the other way around. And what do we do? It is a very common question. So this verse describes how that those who are swan-like, that those who are spiritually awake, they are of a certain group. And those who are spiritually dead, who value non-spiritual activities, they are of a different group. And naturally, as devotees, we become concerned. We should become concerned that, wow, I'm working and I don't hardly have time, and I'm hearing about these devotees and they just chant 24 hours a day and they're preaching about Krishna, and shouldn't I be doing that? And I want to do that. Oh, but I'm going to school, I'm married. So what do I do? Well, we can only do what we can do. We have to do our duty. As a wife, we can't leave our husband and family, as much as we may value and appreciate bhakti, Krishna bhakti. And especially a man. Srila Prabhupada, of course, he spoke about renunciation. He spoke about how entangling marital life can be. And it is, because it uses so much of our time. And it can be very tricky in terms of remaining pure on the path of Krishna consciousness. But he became especially disgusted with men who accepted the responsibility of marriage and then ran away. He was very upset with them, because it is a duty. And when we do our duty, whether it's as a wife or a husband or a teacher, it is something that we do whether we like it or we don't like it, which requires some Krishna consciousness. It requires developing spiritual qualities. The spiritual qualities is not just love and floating in the clouds with the gopis. The very first instruction of Bhagavad Gita, Matra spashas tikantaya shitoshna shukadukada. It means when your children are giving you a hard time, when you're feeling upset with your wife or husband, you tolerate it. It's very real instruction. And household life, married life, is an opportunity to actually live it, not just talk about it. So then, by living according to Bhagavad Gita, by the time we reach our later 50s or early 60s, we are truly realized. We are truly practiced in the basic teachings of Bhagavad Gita. And Lord Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita that this is the way of Krishna consciousness, that one should stay where one is, whether one is a student or a wife or a husband or a parent. Stay where you are and live Bhagavad Gita. Be a devotee where you are. And if it's difficult, take shelter of Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Which doesn't mean the difficulties will go away. But if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you a better person. So, it takes some effort to become cleansed of our materialistic thinking and to awaken fully and manifest our swan-like soul. We are the soul, and everyone is a beautiful spiritual personality. So it doesn't happen just magically. There are some people, devotees, who in their previous life made so much advancement that early in this life, they are able to take to the renounced lifestyle. They become lifelong brahmacharis. Occasionally, there may be a woman who never becomes married, but that's very rare. Or even the man very quickly takes sannyas because they are truly ready for that. Now, Lord Krishna recommends that everyone be very honest with himself and not try to imitate someone else. Or, as I started to say, we have we're awake, and we understand as devotees more and more that, I really wish I had more time just to do my puja of my deity. I wish I had more time to go on Harinam. I wish I had more time just to sit and chant Hare Krishna. I wish I could go and help distribute books more. And that's very good. That's very nice. But we still have to do our duty. And it is a duty. We may think, I'm playing these games with my children. I'm hugging them. I'm spending quality time with my wife or my husband. It's a waste of time. Perhaps in one sense, from a certain perspective, it is, but that's what we need to do. And it is for their benefit. Suppose a man thinks, I should be off preaching, and he neglects his wife so much, she's emotionally unsatisfied and looks for another man. So that's not helping her to be Krishna conscious. So these are realistic, practical understandings of living as a devotee. And if we want to be a devotee of Krishna and we want to love Krishna, we can love Krishna anywhere. It depends upon our sincerity and our following the process of Krishna conscious. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had 10 children, and he worked as a teacher and as a judge almost his entire life. Many of the followers of Lord Chaitanya were married men and women. So it just depends upon our inner desire and determination and taking shelter of Krishna. So this verse, is describing how people who are of a lower nature, who don't value Krishna and spiritual life, they're naturally attracted to low, passionate, ignorant activities. And those who are more spiritually awake are not attracted to those activities, or at least they know good enough not to get involved in them. Even at the end, Srila Prabhupada writes, social, literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense gratification are all dolls of the material energy. Yes, brilliant men and women, dolls of the material energy, because they're not conscious of their spiritual identity. They're just thinking, I am this body. I am this man or woman who won the Nobel Prize or the PhD or the brain surgeon or the whoever they may be. They identify with that. It's not actually knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says knowledge means to understand matter and spirit and the controller of both. This is real knowledge. Which doesn't mean that we don't give credit, of course, to go to school and have a responsible occupation. It does take intelligence, but it's a different kind of intelligence and necessary to understand God, of course. So sometimes this can be hard to understand, that how can people be so smart to do what they do, but you still say they're not intelligent? Yes, from this perspective, that they're not awakened to Krishna consciousness, to whatever extent they are. So we're very fortunate, these literatures, they are meant to awaken us. They're meant to keep us awake. They are both the means and the end. By hearing them and hearing them and hearing them, we will increasingly become purified in our heart of ignorance and passion. And as we become purified, we will enjoy them more and more. And we will be ready to go back home, back to the spiritual world. So I'll stop here, some discussion or comments, questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for today's class, and it really touched the basics from where we are. And I'm sure we can deliberate on that. Are there any questions or comments? So Prabhuji, maybe I can start with, so if the husband is Krishna conscious and the wife is not, so what does he have to do? You said you can be Krishna conscious from wherever you are. So what does this mean?
Well, the first thing is he must take shelter of Krishna. And what are one of the main sources of our strength? Our sadhana, our chanting of Hare Krishna, the rest of it. We have to take shelter of that so that we can stay alive. And then from a practical point of view, if the woman wants to remain married to him or live with him, then there has to be compromise. If he's married to her, or if it's the other way around, the woman is Krishna conscious. I mean, I know women who cook meat for their husband. What could be worse? But what can you do? That's your duty as a woman. Not that you're going to eat it. And you obviously are praying to Krishna, may this stop as soon as possible, and perhaps demand that, only in this way and only this much, some compromise. According to our past activities, we all have to experience some situations. So we humbly accept that and do the best we can. There's nothing else that we can do. We do the best that we can do and pray to Krishna for strength and for relief as soon as it may be possible. Yeah, that's a hard one. It may not be as severe as that, but all the different material needs of both men and women, they have to be met in some way which is manageable. Somehow Krishna has put me in this position. I cannot abandon suppose you have a parent and you have to stay with that parent, or they don't have financial means, or maybe they're ill, maybe they've eaten meat all their life, and that's what you have to deal with, at least for some time. And that's your duty. You can't just run away, oh, I'm going to be a devotee of Krishna. I'm going to go dance in the forest of Vrindavan. No. And Krishna knows. See, here's the thing. Krishna knows our sincerity. And he will not let us get some kind of reaction we don't deserve. It's one thing if we go seek some illicit affair with some other man or woman. It's another thing if somehow circumstances put us in a situation where we may be having more sex than we want to. Krishna knows the difference, just to give a graphic example. And he won't allow us to suffer for it in the same way. Krishna knows what's going on. I'll share, you appreciate it, and I will share an example. Very, very sadly, I was married for 20 years, and my devotee wife, something happened with brain chemicals. She became very, very seriously psychologically disturbed, and she became completely a non-devotee. And it was very, very difficult, and I hoped that she would change. And I remained in that situation for many years. But it was definitely a great test of my determination to remain on the path of bhakti yoga, regardless of what was going on around me. And sometimes you have to do things which are not the usual. I used to draw a picture of Tulsi in the dust of a table, and then I would walk around that image that I drew in the dust. So someone may say, well, that's not a Tulsi plant, that's just, but Krishna knows. Krishna knows exactly every situation that we're in, and he reciprocates. There are devotees who have been in jails for years. So somehow we carry on, whether it's a very severe situation, or our husband is just in a bad mood for some weeks, or our children are difficult to deal with, whatever it may be, we carry on.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So in short, Krishna sees our sincerity.
Yeah. I used to write to prisoners in jail, a few, and some of them were so Krishna conscious. Krishna, he can illuminate our heart in amazing ways. Krishna can fill anyone's heart with the most amazing Krishna consciousness. It doesn't matter what dress we wear or where we are. He's completely, but it depends upon what we want. Depends what we want, really want. If we are looking for an excuse to get more into sense gratification, and we're using well, my husband is, not so Krishna conscious, so it's real hard, I'm just going to live like him. Krishna knows how much we're really trying or not, or whether it's, oh, here's an excuse I can. Krishna knows. We can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool Krishna anytime. And Krishna is so generous. Just like we have the example of that flower vendor who was, or fruit vendor. So she came with fruit, and all Lord Krishna had was some grains of rice or something. So she accepted that, an offering of love. See, we're talking about giving gifts. Oh, you're giving me something. And Krishna gave her fruit, And they thought, oh, you love me so much. And she walked away with a bowl of jewels. And Putana was trying to kill Krishna. But on one level, Krishna said, oh, you're acting like my mother. Okay. You can go back to the spiritual world. But he also killed her. So Krishna is very quick to reciprocate. We will be successful if we just take shelter of Krishna. We're on the winning side. We will win if only we just keep taking shelter of Krishna. Some other questions or comments?
Any other questions or comments? I think everybody is really satisfied with your explanations, Prabhuji.
Well, they are the wisdom of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, and Lord Krishna himself. However imperfectly, I let it come through, and a little bit of my own experience.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences, Prabhuji, because that makes us, we have not met you, but now we understand that even Krishna's devotees, they go through so much. And it reminds me of Prahlad Maharaj. I mean, he also went through so much, but he never left the Smaranam or thinking of Krishna all the time. So whatever may come onto us, we should remember Krishna and never forget him.
Yeah. What was that verse we discussed last week, where Lord Brahma says that those who go on offering obeisances, suffering the results of their own past misdeeds, continuing to offer obeisances, for them, the spiritual world is an inheritance. They inherit it by that attitude. So there you go, or there we go. We just have to do it. So someone may say, well, how do you know that? I don't. But I have faith. I have great confidence in that. I don't see why all of these great saintly persons could be lying or something. And I've gotten enough little bit of realization to be very confident about that yes, it is true. It is very true.
Thank you very much.
That prayer is from the 10th canto, chapter 14. Very wonderful prayers. We don't need to wait to go through the whole Bhagavatam. We should not misunderstand that. We can read anywhere and everywhere, although in general we should focus first on Bhagavad Gita and then Srimad Bhagavatam.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Are there any other questions? Pramila Mataji, do you have a question? You have unmuted, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for your class. I just feel, okay, so cooking meat as a wife duty for a husband. If the wife is a devotee of Krishna, that carries such a sin, buying meat, cooking meat, serving meat. Excuse me. So where does a wife draw the line there? She is doing that thinking she's serving her husband. But what about the sin involved?
Well, I mean, as far as I know, that's an unusual circumstance, because who would marry such a man? But it may be that both of you are like that, or he is like that, and then you meet devotees and you want to be a devotee of Krishna. So you cannot divorce him as long as he allows you to keep your vegetarian diet and carry on your puja and such. As long as he doesn't interfere with your Krishna consciousness, you can live separately if possible. You can. I'm not going to do this, but I meant to say, if there's just no other way, Krishna knows. Krishna knows. And you can tell him, I'll cook you fish, but I'm not going to cook anything else. There has to be some compromise. And that's such a rare situation. But I have bumped into it a number of times.
No, but my friend, she, her husband likes meat. And my friend is a devotee of Krishna. And she has a problem with that. Fortunately for her, she does not have to cook the meat, but she has to smell the meat being cooked in the house. She has a tulsi plant in her house. And really, I heard in one discourse, the Prabhuji said, once you have a tulsi plant in your house, you should not have egg or meat or any products in your house. She has an altar of Krishna in her house. She does the prayers, and she finds it quite difficult, smelling that meat, going into the kitchen. He washes his dishes after when he cooks his meal. She gives him his own pans and whatever. But
let him cook.
Yeah, it's really quite a
horrible
situation.
It's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible. But what can be done? I mean, there are many shoulds, but then there is what life situation puts us in. So yes, it should not be like that, but it's going to be like that at least for some time. And Krishna is not going to hold her responsible. Krishna's a person. He understands the situation. It's not some automatic law of penalty that's going to happen. And that's a very, very difficult situation. I mean, here's a much more innocent example. I was in one temple and there was not much money, and all we had was mostly potatoes and cabbage. So a couple of devotees said, we're not going to cook unless there's other vegetables, because Krishna should. Well, I think there were other vegetables for the deities, but the devotees should have other vegetables. So that's the mode of goodness, interfering with bhakti. Sometimes the mode of goodness interferes with bhakti. Well, I'm not going to cook in this kitchen unless it's clean. Well, what does that mean? That Krishna is going to not have their offering in the temple because the kitchen's not clean enough for you? You just tolerate and try and have the situation change as much as you're able to. So sometimes the mode of goodness can interfere with serving Krishna. It's true. So yes, there's no palatable answer for that, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So to help Pramila Mataji, I know of a devotee who has to cook meat for the family, for the father-in-law and the mother-in-law, along with her husband. And she prays before she cooks meat. And she says, I'm really sorry, Krishna, I have to do this. It is for them I'm doing this and not for my own sense gratification. So I guess when you're doing it for your own sense gratification, I think that that is the line. And when you have to do it for others as a duty, that is another line probably.
That's true. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says in the performance of duty, there's always imperfections. But one should not abandon one's, it's in the 18th. One should not abandon one's duty because there's some contamination. Not that one should increase it, but if somehow there's something, sometimes devotees, they work for, I don't know, a computer company, and they have to go into restaurants to sell meat. What are you going to do? This is the material world. There's always some contamination. We don't like it, and hopefully we can get a different job as soon as possible. But then there's another example of tolerating. We have to tolerate and keep thinking of Krishna, because that will purify us of sins. Prahlad Maharaj, he was given poison to drink, but because he was so meditating on Krishna, he wasn't affected. The spiritual master who gives diksha, because of the spiritual master's intense meditation on Krishna, and devotion to Krishna, the sins pass through him. So this thinking of Krishna, it is very, very crucial. If we slip up, then we can experience the results of sins in the course of our activity. If we're not careful. We're killing so many bugs and insects with every step. You turn on the oven, you kill roaches and insects. Some other discussion, questions?
Any more questions or comments?
Yes, just to follow, excuse me, just to follow that up a little bit more, Prabhuji. So really, I mean, fortunately, I am not in this situation, but I'm just thinking of other people who are. So really, where does a wife or a partner or whoever does to cook meat for members of the family, where is her rights as a person? So if the family expect you to go and jump off a hill, do you do that in the sense of, oh, it's my wifely duty or it's my daughter-in-law's duty? Where are the rights of a person then in all of this?
If the husband and the family members truly care for the woman, they should compromise or they should cook themselves.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. And if, as I said, if it's at all possible, if somehow she is able to do it, she can say, I'm not going, you are capable of doing it. I don't want to do it. And I'm going to live separately and carry on I won't divorce you, but I'm going to carry on my own life. If he has the strength to do that, or the man. That's another. We are allowed to separate. We don't have to keep ourselves in some abusive, certainly no violence. There's no woman or man's duty to accept abuse. Absolutely not. But there's no law that she or he cannot express yourself. Why not? And what you say about jumping off a hill, I mean, that's, as well as I do, that has nothing to do with being a wife, jumping off a hill. Suppose a husband insists that the wife use chemicals to kill mice, and she doesn't want to do that. If it's going to create so much, I mean, I can't imagine, but it's somehow there was going to be such upset and disturbance about it, which would disturb her mind from remembering Krishna, then she should accept it as something that her husband is requesting her to do and pray to Krishna, as Kirtika pointed out, and leave the results to Krishna. We have to protect our peace of mind so that we can carry on our Krishna consciousness up to a point. Up to a point.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, if there are no more questions or comments, can I request Pramila Mataji, can you please close this session for today? Is it possible for you to do that?
I can try, Mataji. Thank you. Prabhuji, it was very, very nice discourse, very nicely explained. Hence, not many questions today. So we really enjoy your sessions on a Sunday. So thank you so very much. I'll hand over back to you, Kirtika Mataji.
So let us chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra once to glorify Prabhuji. Kindly unmute. Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama, 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 Hare Hare.
Vanchika
Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.
Shri
Jai.
Dina Sharan
Prabhuji
Prabhu
Jai.
Jai.
Sarva
Everyone be well.
Vaishnava
Remember, Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you
Prabhuji.
for letting me be with you.
Thank you.